Who's going to be the best player on the Atlanta Braves in 2025? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Tuesday, December 17th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. It's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And if any of you have spent time online, on social media, trying to look for or trying to just watch to see if the Braves have done anything this offseason, you've seen a graphic that was put up by one of those baseball aggregation accounts on Twitter that listed the top 100 players for the 2025 season. And rightfully got a lot of flack as just engagement bait and things like that. But I did a little digging and it made me start thinking, who is going to be the best Braves player for 2025? And it's not easy to define best, right? There's a lot of different ways you can look at that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go off of WAR. Wins above replacement. How much more valuable any specific player is from a replacement level player. So not the average MLB guy, but if your guy got hit by a bus, what either minor league replacement or street free agent could you sign to replace him? And it's a really, I spent some time yesterday sitting down with this and looking at this and digging into it, looking at some of the online projections and things like that. And I think that the answer, or the most likely answer from where we sit right now, obviously, a lot can happen between now and next year. But from where we sit right now, I think it's going to be a really surprising answer, especially when you go back and you look at what it's looked like in previous years. So last year, this roster last year, obviously we know the offense suffered with just tons of injuries, a lot of surprising ineffectiveness from guys. And so your top two in WAR on the 2024 Atlanta Braves were pitchers, right? Chris Sale was worth 6.2 WAR. That's baseball reference WAR. I'm not going to get into the differences in those two. Baseball reference is the easier one to use over Fangraphs. So 6.2 WAR for Chris Sale. And was one of the best starting pitchers in baseball last year. Won a Cy Young, won a Triple Crown, won a Gold Glove. It makes sense, right? It totally makes sense. Your number two was Ronaldo Lopez at 5.1 WAR, because on a rate basis, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball also. 1.99 ERA, across 26 appearances, 25 starts, struck out 148 and 135 and 2/3 innings. And we've had that conversation on here, right? About there's reasons to wonder if he can repeat that performance or not. About how the field and independent pitching, about how the expected ERA are both worse than what he put up last year. But the point is, last year, he put up 5.1 WAR. Marcell Ozuna, who for most of the season was an MVP candidate, not the front runner because Ohtani went nuclear, right? But he was one of the best hitters in baseball until the very end of the year. And even then, that final month, I believe he still hit over 300. He just didn't have the power production because of fatigue, was what was reported. He ended up with 4.3 WAR after batting .302 with 39 homers and 104 RBI. Yeah, the month of September, 26 games, he batted .277, but his slugging was only .383. He only had 6 extra base hits in his 26 hits. And because the way that WAR works, it takes in offense, but it also takes in base running, and it takes in defense. the way that WAR works is a designated hitter like Marcell Ozuna, no matter how good his season was, if he's not adding value on the base paths, which he was not, and he's not adding any sort of value defensively, which obviously he didn't. He didn't use his glove in a game in 2024. I saw him take pregame drills at first base a lot, but he never actually got into a game because Matt Olson doesn't miss time. Then Marcell Ozuna's ceiling is limited. Shohei Ohtani, obviously, found a way to transcend the usual WAR issues at designated hitter because, one, he hit 54 home runs, but also he stole 59 bases. And if I remember right from the new StatCast base running measures that they rolled out, I'm pretty sure either Sunday or Monday, Shohei Ohtani was one of the most valuable base runners in 2025 because he very rarely got thrown out when trying to steal. He was a very good base runner because he was so efficient with his steals, right? He stole 59 bags. He got thrown out 4 times. So he had 9.2 WAR, led the National League, but he added so much more value that Marcell Ozuna can't add. But that's having pitchers lead your WAR calculations is not usually how it happens, right? Most teams, unless you have a generationally great year from a pitcher, which I would argue Chris Sale's 2024 was generationally great. He led baseball in wins, winning percentage, ERA, ERA plus, field and independent pitching, lowest home run rate in baseball, highest strikeout rate in baseball. It's hard to argue that wasn't generationally great, right? Led the National League in strikeouts as well. Unless you combine a generationally great year from a pitcher with notable down years from your offense, it's usually going to be a position player that leads that grouping, right? 2023, Ronald Acuna Jr. wins the MVP. He has 8.2 WAR, right? Bats .337 with 41 homers, 73 steals, leads baseball in runs and hits, total bases at 383, and then leads the National League in plate appearances and at-bats. Also caught stealing, which he's not as efficient of a base runner as Ohtani was. And he had 8.2 WAR. Second on the team was Matt Olson at 7.4, who led all of baseball in homers and RBIs, 54 and 139. Third was Austin Riley, who ended up being a 7th place finisher in MVP. Fourth was Ozzie Albies at 4.7 WAR, who actually, people forget, finished in 16th place in the MVP voting, right? He batted .280 with 33 bombs and 109 RBI. I feel like Ozzie's 2023 gets a little slept on just how amazing he was. Sean Murphy was 5. Michael Harris was 6. The first Braves pitcher on the list was Spencer Strider at 7. And I'll remind you, Strider led baseball in wins, winning percentage, and strikeouts, right? 386 ERA, he had a couple bad outings and blowups in there. His fielding independent pitching of 285, though, led the National League, so some bad luck there. But he had a very good year, 4th place finisher in Cy Young, and he was 7th on the Braves in WAR. And I think, especially when you see the Michael Harris and the Sean Murphy inclusion, I think that's because you have to understand the value of defense, right? And this is like WAR takes into account where you play on the field, okay? If you have 2 players who give you the exact same stats offensively, and they are both the best defender at their position, and they're rated the exact same on the base paths, the shortstop will have a higher WAR because it is a higher defensive standard at shortstop. It is defensively more important at short than at first. So that's why you see, despite the second half swoon for Sean Murphy in 2023, despite not, like Michael Harris only getting 138 games, that's why you see them in that top 6. And it's because the defense behind the plate and center field is so important. And because of that defensive component, my favorite for the most valuable Brave, or the best Atlanta Brave in 2025, as measured by defense, is going to be Michael Harris. Because I don't think we necessarily realize his defense is elite. So last season, Michael Harris missed a lot of time. He played less than 1,000 innings in the outfield. And yet, he came in, let's go to StatCast here. He was 12th for center field run value. All but 4 guys ahead of him, played over 1,000 innings. I am of the opinion that Michael Harris can play Gold Glove caliber defense in center field if he can get a full year under his belt, if he can be fully healthy, if he doesn't miss time because of an injury. You know, this is something, he had that back issue in 2023 early. He hit the wall, missed a little bit of time, took a little while to get right when he came back. Last year, he started off incredibly hot, missed time with the back injury, came back and was incredibly hot to close the year. Michael Harris's first 2 seasons in the league, he averaged 295 batting average, an 828 OPS, with 19 home runs and 20 stolen bases. He stole 20 in both years. He hit 19 and 18 home runs in those 2 years. So the average was 19 homers because it was 37 total across 2 seasons. They total of 252 games, right? He gets called up in season in 2022. He got hurt early in 2023 and missed some time. Last year, he got in only 110 games. But again, I said he started hot and he ended hot. The first month of the year for Michael Harris in 2024, he batted .304 with a 791 OPS. 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases, close to his career numbers, right? In the last month of the year, Michael Harris went nuclear. Okay? He batted .316 with a 923 OPS. He hit 8 home runs, drove in 18, scored 21 runs. And if you remember some of these games, like at times, he took over games. He went 3 for 6 with 2 homers against Washington on the road, September 10th. In that series in Cincinnati, he went, I think it was 6 of 16 with 4 home runs and 6 RBI. He, at times, went nuclear in the month of September. And I know it's a small sample size. Anybody can get hot for a month. But from what we've seen from Michael Harris so far, when he's been healthy, he's been a 2020 guy. That month of September, he was on pace. Granted, this is small sample size, but 1 month, 26 games is roughly just under 1/6 of a season. 8 home runs translates to an over 40 homer pace for a year. Now, obviously, he wasn't going to keep that pace up all year, but I do think it's possible that Michael Harris, if he can stay healthy, is able to put up numbers like that. And when you combine his offense, the offensive potential that he's shown, with his amazing defense, I think Michael Harris can be one of the most valuable, can be the best member of the Atlanta Braves next season. In just a minute, let me tell you what the projection systems say, what Brian Snitker said about this, and who else should be on that list. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about who are the best Atlanta Braves in 2025. right? I think we obviously can't know. We can speculate. We can look at projections, things like that. And Brian Snitker actually was asked a little bit about this at the winter meetings, and not directly. They didn't ask him, who do you think is going to be the best Atlanta Brave? Because he's going to give a diplomatic answer, right? But he was asked about specific players and his thoughts on them. Let me go to the transcript real quick from the winter meetings. And all right, the question here, you said the last day of the season, before the game and after the game, you're looking forward to what Michael Harris can do. How big can he be just to help bridge a gap while you're fixing your outfield? And this question is in relation to Ronald Acuna Jr. not being ready to start the season. That was the question before this. And the Braves doing some more work on the outfield to try and to figure out who your starting mix is going to be until Ronald's back. So the context of the question here is, how big of a job can Michael Harris do to help bridge that gap until Ronald gets back? Here's what Brian Snitker said, direct quotes. I think it could be huge. I think Michael is ready to do that. These last couple of years, he's probably learning his body and the grind that the major league season is. I'm sure he'll, as they go in, and what they end up doing is adjusting their workouts in the offseason. We'll see what the guy can do. He's a special talent. We can keep him on the field for 150 plus games. He's got a chance of being a really good, strong, middle of the bat guy, middle of the lineup bat guy. End quote. This is a couple things that Snitz touched on before, right? The physical toll of playing a full season. I remember the winter meetings last year. He talked about that in relation to Bryce Elder, how Bryce Elder wore down throughout the course of 2023 because it was such a big workload. The Braves ended up not using Bryce Elder in the majors that much last season because his stuff wasn't where it needed to be. He talked about, in this case, same workload situation with Michael Harris. 162 games is a lot of baseball, especially when you consider nobody on your roster does more running than your center fielder. I remember, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, I remember watching an interview with somebody from the New York Mets who was playing center field. I want to say maybe it was either Brandon Nimmo or Jeff McNeil. I honestly confuse those two a ton. And they were showing him how much more he runs in center field versus when he plays a corner. And by distance and by effort, because they had the motion tracking things on, he runs 2.5 times harder, and he runs 60% more distance when he plays center than when he plays a corner. So the physical toll is absolutely there for Michael Harris, right? He is running a lot. But Snitz also talked about that man strength, right? He's still getting that man strength. We forget, Michael Harris, right now as I record this, is 23 years old. He absolutely still has room to grow physically, offensively, and defensively. I do worry that, when it comes to defense, by the way, I do worry that the competition in the National League is so intense that he's not going to actually get into the Gold Glove finalists. Like, he's a Gold Glove caliber defender. But again, he came in 12th on that list last year, had less than 1,000 innings. Of the 11 guys ahead of him, 3 were in the American League, right? You had Jake Myers of the Astros in 7th, Jarren Duran of the Red Sox in 6th, and Jose Siri of the Tampa Bay Rays in 4th. And Siri is now in the National League playing for the Mets. He'll be next to Juan Soto every day. So there's just so many good defenders in the National League in center field that you have to be consistently great and healthy all year, and you need some good luck to get into that final group. Because, like, you've got Brenton Doyle in Colorado. You've got Jacob Young in Washington. You've got Pete Crow Armstrong with the Cubs, who I watched him in the minors, like in person. And I have not seen a center fielder who is as good as him defensively. Like, I have not watched a guy in person as good as Pete Crow Armstrong defensively since I watched Andrew Jones as a kid. That's how good Pete Crow Armstrong is. You've got Michael Ciani with the Cardinals. You've got Jackson Merrill with the Padres. We don't know where Harrison Bader is going to sign, but you've got Harrison Bader. Johan Rojas in Philly is a pretty good defender in center field too. Defensively, Michael Harris might not be able to break into that top 3 because he's got to stay healthy and he's got to be consistently elite all year. But he's got the skills to do it. He's good enough to do it. The question will be not whether he will. But offensively, I think he can do a lot. And the Fangraphs Steamer projections, which there's a lot of projection systems out there, this is considered to be one of the more accurate ones in baseball. It uses past performance, it uses aging trends, and then for pitchers, they also give you pitch tracking data too. It incorporates that as well. And fun fact, Steamer was created by a high school science teacher and 2 of his students as part of an independent research program at the high school. Fun fact, it's now like the gold standard for projection systems. They have Michael Harris at number 1 on this team with 5.2 WAR. It's a little bit conservative, consistently conservative, right? Like they don't always go with that high of totals, right? But they've got Michael Harris leading this team at 5.2 WAR. After him, they've got Ronald Acuna Jr. at 5 WAR. I do worry about the accuracy of this because, one, they have him playing 131 games. If he misses the first 6 weeks of the season, feels like he won't get to that total. And they have him hitting 27 homers, stealing 46 bags. I don't know how many bases he'll steal on the coming off of the torn ACL. We didn't see him steal a ton in 2022 coming back from the ACL. Same situation. If it's not Michael Harris, and I think it's reasonable to assume it won't be Ronald Acuna Jr. unless he comes back at 100% and just goes nuclear, which I don't know if he's going to do it or not. I think your 3 most likely position players in this situation, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, maybe Marcell Ozuna again, okay? So Matt Olson is projected for 3 WAR. I'll remind you, last year, he put up 3.8, again, 29 homers, 98 RBI, and he really saved his season down the stretch, okay? When he started July, he had 12 home runs. And he hit 8 in August. He hit 4 more in September. And those last 2 months are really what it took. 264 average in the month of August. Again, the 8 home runs, 911 OPS. September, 319 with a 954 OPS and 4 homers. He figured out what was going wrong a little late in the year, but he figured it out. And his upswing was one of the reasons why the Braves were able to push and make the postseason despite all the injuries. I think we obviously saw how good Matt Olson can be in 2023 when everything goes right. I don't necessarily think he'll be at 7.4 WAR again, but I do think if it's not Michael Harris, if it's not Ronald Acuna Jr., there's a reason to believe Matt Olson could be that guy. I think another guy that I'm still waiting for him to have that breakout that we know he's capable of having. He hasn't really seemed to have gotten there yet. But he's consistently one of the better players in baseball. I think this could be a massive year for Austin Riley. The last 3 years before he missed time in 2024, so 21, 22, and 23, he averaged a 286 average with 36 home runs, 99 RBI, and was 3 times inside the top 10 of the MVP voting. 7th place, 6th place, and 7th place. Yet he wasn't an all-star in 2021. Fun fact. So obviously last year, stepped back because of the injury, because of ineffectiveness. He batted 256 with 19 homers, 56 RBI. I think that Austin Riley, to me, feels like he's that close to getting that getting over that hump of getting into the top 5 of the MVP race. Consistently one of the best hitters in the National League. Just can't seem to take that leap and have that generational year. We never know what it's going to be that causes that for a player. I don't think any of us knew it was going to happen for Ronald Acuna Jr. in 23. That generational leap for him was his strikeout rate. His strikeout rate just significantly and dramatically plunged for that one season. For Ronald, his previous lowest strikeout rate for a season had been 23.6% in 21 and 22. In 2023, it dropped all the way to 11.4. Last season, right back to career norms, 23.9%. So just for some reason, he just was not striking out in 23 like he did the rest of his career up to that point. I don't know what that thing is going to be for Austin Riley. Is it going to be strikeout rate? He averages 25.7%, slightly above MLB average. He's been between high 23s and low 25s all of the last 5 years, right? It's skewed because his first season in 2019, he struck out 36% of the time. Outside of that, he's been a 23, 24, 25% guy. Is he going to see a drop? I don't know what it will take, but I think Austin Riley can absolutely be that guy. Marcell Ozuna, I don't really see how he gets into leading the team in WAR unless Matt Olson misses time. And Marcell Ozuna not only is the guy that they put at first base, but he actually does okay, right? He won't get a bunch of WAR for playing first base. That's just not how first base works. And then he's not a great base runner, which I don't think helps a lot. We did see some shots, some social media stuff over the offseason. He has slimmed down a lot. Like he has lost, it looked like, I would assume he's lost 20, 25 pounds. Obviously, I don't know if that's true or not. It was action shots, but he looked remarkably slimmer. I'm excited to see what he looks like when we get to spring training. We'll see him down in Northport in February. I don't think Marcell Ozuna can get in that leading the team in WAR without playing the field and contributing defensively. And I just don't think it's not going to be the outfield, right? I didn't see him in the outfield once at all last year before a game. It was all first base. I don't think they're going to turn around and put him back in the outfield now. Ozzie Albies is always a candidate, right? He had his two best WAR years were 4.9 and 4.7, 2019, 2023. If he's fully healthy, we know he can hit 30 bombs. He can steal 15, 20 bases. This is an odd number year, so it tracks that Ozzie Albies will be fully healthy. That's how this has worked in his career. Again, 21, full season. 22, played 64 games. 23, almost full season. 24, played 99 games. The pattern is that 2025 should be close to a full season for Ozzie Albies. If it is a pitcher again, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because that means the offense has struggled again. But if it is a pitcher, it's probably a generational year from somebody. And the order I think that would happen for me would be Chris Sale, 1, simply because we've seen that generational year from him before, right? He had 6.2 WAR last year, won the Cy Young. So we've seen him do that. I think number 2 for me would be Spencer Schwellenbach. In 2025, I see his strikeout rate improving. Because you remember that first couple starts, he was trying to learn how to get dudes out. And he doesn't always prioritize strikeouts, right? He's content sometimes just generating weak contact with that wide arsenal that he has. But I can see the strikeout rate ticking up. I can see the walk rate ticking down a little bit. And I can see the home run rate ticking down. Because I think that's where Spencer Schwellenbach, if you remember, he gave up 14 home runs. It was 1 home run per 9 innings. But I do think a lot of that was because he was struggling, especially if you were early in his debuts, like that 4th or 5th inning, he was struggling with seeing a guy for the 2nd or 3rd time and figuring out how to get that guy out. So I've got the order for me being Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez. Strider, I think, just because he's going to miss a month, it feels very unlikely he would get enough WAR to be in there. Same as Ronald, right? We don't know what condition he'll be in. We don't know when we'll actually get him back. But my favorites for best player on the Braves in 2025, I've got Michael Harris 1. I think I've got Austin Riley 2, Matt Olson 3, Ozzie Albies 4. It's probably the order I have. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you have for an order. Also, if you have any questions, we're going to do a mailbag this week, so let me hear from those. In the meantime, if you're listening on audio, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review with some kind words. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Also, maybe leave us a 5-star review with some nice words. That really does mean a ton. My wife loves reading those, by the way. And until next time, this has been Braves Today.